Union bosses have been in Canberra lobbying the Prime Minister to step in and help save the manufacturing industry, which is struggling to remain competitive under the high Australian dollar. And they appear to have the backing of the opposition after Tony Abbott gave a speech today explaining there could be exceptions to the coalition's preference not to interfere with market forces. Here's our political correspondent Tom Eagleton in Canberra.
Tony Abbott opened his speech with a joke, acknowledging an advisor to former Foreign Minister Alexander Downer, who went on to win a Liberal seat in Parliament.
I've got to say it's nice to have someone in the parliamentary party who understands foreign affairs at last.
The opposition's Foreign Affairs spokesman, Julie Bishop, mightn't have made much of that punchline, but Mr Abbott's main focus was the subject of economics.
Over the past 4 years, Australia's economic success has been more apparent than real.
In a speech in defence of free markets, he said the coalition was against pillowing inefficient industries from the rigours of competition.
On the other hand, if there's a respectable case that can be made for maintaining a heavy manufacturing base on the grounds of national security, the inherent value of a diversified economy, or the transitional costs of shutting down capital-intensive industries only to start them up again when market conditions change, there needs to be a forum where it can be addressed.
And he's announced one, a policy committee headed up by his Shadow Minister of Industry, Sophie Mirabella, and his Shadow Resources Minister, Ian Macfarlane.
The objective won't be to protect parts of the economy from legitimate competition, but to try to ensure that Australian manufacturers face a genuinely level playing field when they compete for orders.
Unions have been complaining local steelmakers have lost out to Chinese competitors on contracts to build multi-billion-dollar mining projects in Queensland and Western Australia. Today, they pushed the Prime Minister to go local.
Locally brewed tea, I hope.
To prop up demand for Australian steel in Australian projects.
Getting some tougher cops on the beat around local procurement, both private sector procurement and government procurement.
The union's arguments for government intervention sound a lot like Tony Abbott's.
My fear is that when we hit the bottom of the quarry, and we will because these resources aren't renewable, that we won't have industries like the steel makers left to be able to absorb changes in the economy when that occurs.
Earlier this year, the Australian Workers' Union won billions of government dollars for the steel industry in compensation for the carbon tax. That compensation's now been moved forward as the industry struggles under the weight of a high Australian dollar. There's been no word yet from the Prime Minister about this latest request for help. Tom Eagleton, Lateline.